listening to America First Radio. Here is your host, Paul Adams.
Okay, so today we're going to discuss Pizzagate. It's a terrible topic. It's a horrendous reality, and we have to face it square on. You know, the same media that says Pizzagate is nothing is the same media that ran stories about normalizing pedophilia. See how the slippery slide is suddenly getting steeper and more slippery? Someone on Gab, which is the latest social media that's up and coming, said, "To think there could be children in various states caged in some basement somewhere is horrifying." Yes, I agree. Those are exactly my sentiments. We can't let this go on. I checked the hashtag Pizzagate the other day on Twitter and came across, well, essentially a price guide, a menu with an X-axis and a Y-axis. And I'm warning you, this is very graphic, very disturbing. So you may want to fast forward the next 30 seconds. The categories along the Y-axis were rape, minor torture, severe torture, and finish them. And along the X-axis, along the top, you had all the various age groups. 0 to 3 years old, 4 to 7, 8 to 11, and 12 to 13-year-olds. And the prices range from $5,000 to $250,000. So the first question is, who can afford this kind of money for this kind of demonic ritual? The second question, how many of the elite are involved in Pizzagate? Third question, is this why the Clintons could never be prosecuted because they have a Rolodex of everyone that's involved in Pizzagate? Is Pizzagate the ultimate blackmail weapon for them? You know, when I learned that children are not only kidnapped, but then raped, tortured, killed, and served in spirit cooking rituals, my circuit breakers blew up. I want justice, and I want it now. As far as I'm concerned, folks, you might as well flick the World War III switch and get this over with, because we don't deserve to be called civilized anymore if our children are being slaughtered in satanic rituals. You see, it's only when we express our outrage that evil takes notice and retreats. That's why back in the Old Testament, God was so harsh with anyone that stepped out of line. Appeasement and silence only encourages evil. Tolerating it festers it. Smiling at evil only metastasizes it. And that's why I think I saw God's crosshairs pan over to America and lock onto America the day I watched the television set announce that the Supreme Court had legalized gay marriage. That was a huge mistake. And I have gay friends. I have transgender friends. I've even dated one complete 100% post-operative woman who had been born with both male and female characteristics, and then decided to have the operation become a female. So I understand, you know, I totally get it. You know, I would have been fine with civil unions. That would have been the way to go. So you can have equal rights, you know, you could have, but please don't desecrate the institution of marriage, okay? Don't tell us what the institution of marriage was formed for. And that's why also abortion is such a huge mistake, because with abortion, the Satanists can say, well, if it's okay to dismember and kill children in the womb, what's wrong with carving up and killing children when they are 2 or 3 or 4? And with same-sex marriage, they can say, well, if it's okay to marry people of the same sex, what's wrong with marrying adults to children, or adults to animals, or relatives to each other? See how the slippery slope starts off very gently? Now, is Pizzagate the tip of the iceberg? How did we get here? I was just reading a chapter in the Book of Mormon today, and yes, I am a Latter-day Saint. This is my First Amendment right, so I have a right to speak my mind. The book is named after one of its prophets called Mormon, who lived back in 400 A.D., thereabouts. And the book mentions the name Jesus Christ over 200 times. It speaks specifically of how Satan gets into people's hearts and how Satan uses secret societies, secret combinations to bring down governments, civilizations. It's a mirror for our times. It tells us here, look, this is what happened to us. This is what's going to happen to you if you don't shape up. It's a looking glass into our era, and it pleads with us to turn from our sinful ways and cling to Jesus Christ. That's the message of the book in a nutshell, and I've read it 51 times, going on 52, and no, I'm not trying to convert you, okay? I would not want to do that here. This is not about converting anybody, folks, okay? Don't take it the wrong way. But it should be very clear by now, we are on a progressive, slippery slope that is getting progressively steeper and slippier. And what the atheists call a progressive new morality is actually a very old regressive immorality. It will dismantle our central government and usher in a feudalistic, anarchistic dystopia, which will be an on-ramp for the totalitarian one-world order with Lucifer in control. If we are allowing Pizzagate to go unchecked, then forget the corruption in Congress, forget the illegal voting, forgetting them taking jobs, forget the Federal Reserve, forget the war on ISIS, forget Hillary's email gate and racketeering, forget all that. Because if we don't put an end to pedophilia and spirit cooking and all these other satanic rituals, now that we have seen it full bore, if we don't do that, I'm telling you, America is finished. Done. We have known for some time that pedophilia rings existed. FBI Director for Los Angeles, Ted Gunderson, a few years ago spoke about his findings, and you need to listen to him. Listen to him.
A deputy sheriff was the first one on the scene. He saw the pictures. He started picking up the pictures. An FBI agent came along, took the pictures away from him, told him to keep his mouth shut. He started talking to a few people. A year later, his wife was murdered. He's no longer talking. This international child kidnapping ring, I later learned, was out of Washington, D.C. It was very active, and the organization is known as the Finders. And I have a report on the Finders back there. Everything I'm telling you is documented, by the way. The Finders has been established and operating throughout the 1960s up to the present time. It was exposed in 1987. They moved their operation to Wichita, Kansas, and they're operating right today in Wichita, Kansas. I have taken my report to the FBI a half a dozen times, demanded an investigation.
So our eyes now, once again, are forced open, and if we decide to let the SIVA go, America is over. Doesn't matter if you call yourself Republican or Democrat, Libertarian. Pizzagate has got to go, or it will take America down. You know, that's the same kind of perversion and immorality that existed in ancient Israel when they sacrificed children in their groves. That's what led to the destruction of Israel and the diaspora. God put it in the hearts of Israel's enemies to take down Israel. And He will put it into the hearts of our enemies to take America down, and right back to the pre-industrial age. Ladies and gentlemen, my spirit, we all have feelings. And my spirit, my whole being was never more traumatized, more convulsed. I've never felt more revulsion. I've never been more assaulted, grieved, and broken as after reading the Pizzagate menu. Especially when I read that some of the children had already been broken down and were ready to be finished off. And to think that somewhere tonight, across the United States, there are children who are locked up in cellars, who are being prepared to be used as sacrifices for Satan, to be used in spirit cooking rituals by people high up in government. Where is the outrage? You know, I never thought in a million years I could get this enraged. I never thought I could feel this kind of extreme, inordinate, disproportionate fury. And it's taken me a few days to calm down so I could record this podcast calmly. And I've listened to Alex Jones talk about it, and he and I feel the same way. I know exactly what he's feeling. He is blowing gaskets and tripping circuit breakers. You know, he is bursting veins, as they say in the Bahamas. I think maybe, just maybe, as children of God, as imperfect as we are, and yet with that latent, dormant spark of divinity in us, maybe we are feeling the same fury that our Father in heaven is feeling. Maybe this is the kind of fury and rage that is pent up and bottled up in God. Maybe His patience is drawing very thin. Maybe I'm feeling the same kind of rage that Jesus felt for the Pharisees, or when He chased the money changers from the temple with a whip, or before the corrupted generation in Noah's day was swept off the earth, or when Sodom and Gomorrah went up in smoke. And didn't the Lord tell us that in the last days before His coming, our days would be as the days of Noah? Well, let me get a little bit personal here. This is kind of a special, I would consider it a sacred experience, okay? I normally don't get this personal. I don't like to throw pearls before swine. But after I read that Pizzagate menu the other day, that night I got on my knees and with tears I begged and pleaded with all my soul, with every fiber of my being, for the return of our Lord Jesus Christ, so that this evil may be snuffed out of existence. You know, if I had prayed with intensity for Trump to win the election, my prayer on my knees the other night took a quantum leap. It was a super prayer. And here's the odd thing. Here's what happened next, the day after. The next morning, woke up, and usually the first thing I do is I read some scriptures, either from the Bible or the Book of Mormon. And I randomly opened the Bible, and my finger opened up to Isaiah chapter 64, verse 1, where Isaiah was pleading with God the same way I was pleading with God the night before. Chapter 64, verse 1 says, "Oh, that thou wouldst rend the heavens, that thou wouldst come down, that the mountains might flow down at thy presence. As when the melting fire burneth, the fire causeth the waters to boil, to make thy name known to thine adversaries, that the nations may tremble at thy presence. Isaiah was praying for exactly the same thing I was. What are the odds that I would open up to Isaiah 64? I am convinced I'm not the only Christian who is praying for his return. I'm not anything special. I think there is a chorus of prayers going up to God. And as a Latter-day Saint, as a Mormon, I have a very keen sense of the times we live in, and you should get the hint. You know, we are called Latter-day Saints for a reason, because we're living in the latter days, the last days before the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, speaking of burning fires, okay, we heard about the fires in Tennessee, right? The inferno down there. Let me share with you something that I just found on YouTube, and I have to thank this fellow's handle is R and then the $ S as in Sam. Listen to this.
Hey guys, just a quick one today. I don't know if you've been following what's going on in Tennessee with these terrible wildfires and thousands upon thousands of people evacuated and so much destruction and even some deaths. And as I said, just terrible stuff, and my thoughts and prayers are with anyone out there who's been affected by that, or if you know anyone that's been affected by this. Let me draw your attention to a story that's just recently come out from the mainstream media. Now, they don't very often cover stuff like this, but it's good when they do. Flames have burned up all of the trees of the field. Gatlinburg fireworker discovers charred page of the Bible that gives him goosebumps. And this is just absolutely intense. Amazing, actually. This is a charred page of the Bible that they found in the aftermath of the destruction of these fires. And we've been talking about this with a few other people. It's just absolutely amazing what this says. It's actually from the book of Joel, chapter 1, and you can kind of read some of it there. How do the beasts groan? The herds of cattle are perplexed, because they have no pasture. Yea, the flocks of sheep are made desolate. O Lord, to thee will I cry, for the fire hath devoured the pastures of the wilderness, and the flame hath burned all the trees of the field. The beasts of the field cry also unto thee, for the rivers of waters are dried up, and the fire hath devoured the pastures of the wilderness. Amazing. They found this page, this one page of the Bible in the destruction following the fires. Here's a bit more of that passage, and slightly easier to read. The whole passage is pretty interesting if you go and check it out. Joel chapter 1. But here, I mean, the seed shrivels under the clods, storehouses are in shambles, barns are broken down, for the grain hath withered. How the animals groan, the herds of cattle are restless, because they have no pasture. Even the flocks of sheep suffer punishment. O Lord, to you I cry out, for fire hath devoured the open pastures, and a flame has burned all the trees of the field. The beasts of the field also cry out to you, for the water brooks are dried up, and fire has devoured the open pastures. Interesting stuff.
Isn't that something? You know, the entire book of Joel is about the second coming of Jesus Christ. And don't think for a second the enemy is now working overtime. Don't think for a second that his warlocks, witches, voodoo priests, necromancers, psychics, tarot card readers, pedophiles, high priests and high priestesses are not working overtime trying to usher in a Luciferian reign. Don't think that some world leaders are not engaged in pagan, demonic rituals trying to usher in the Antichrist. I've said before that Donald Trump will be presiding when Jesus Christ returns. And our prayers for the Lord's return will have the effect of compressing time and events, shortening the days. This is why Jesus said no one knows the time and day of his second coming, not even the angels, but only God the Father. And this is why maybe I unwittingly created a meme of Donald Trump standing behind a lion, the awakened American majority, which is also a symbol of Israel. That's what the lion stands for. It stands for the house of Israel, for Judah, and also it has references to the tribe of Gad. Now, I'll come back to Trump's connection to Israel later, maybe in another podcast. See, God loves America and loves Israel, but God doesn't play favorites. We're at a juncture, folks, where we have to decide which way we are going to go. Moses didn't get preferential treatment. He was told to stay out of the promised land. He couldn't go in, even though he led the Israelites for 40 years through the desert. So what happened to Moses? What happened? Why was he precluded? Well, here's what happened. Moses struck a rock and water gushed out to quench the thirst for, 600,000 people. But he didn't give God the glory. He said to the whiny Israelites, "Must Aaron and I also provide you with water?" He took the credit to himself. He had a bit of an ego glitch. And so God prohibited Moses from entering the promised land. God also didn't play favorites with King Saul. King Saul, he knew better not to seek the advice of necromancers. And as a result, he and his sons were routed in a battle, and he eventually fell by his own sword. God played no favorites with King David when he sent Uriah to his death in the battlefront so that he could marry Bathsheba, his wife, who he had lusted after. From then on, David slipped into a depression, which he struggled with for the rest of his life. So God plays no favorites. Just because Israel or America are the apples of God's eyes, it doesn't mean he won't kick their ass if they disobey. Just look what he did to Lot's wife. She turned into a pillar of salt. And speaking of people who've lost their salt and are good for nothing but to be trodden down, let's sidetrack here to Hillary just for a second. Hillary's falling down and stumbling, in my humble opinion, is not Parkinson's. My father had Parkinson's. I took care of Dad for close to 3 years, right before he had to be taken to a nursing home. And never once did he stumble and fall down. He had the shakes. He would shuffle his feet, but that's it. Here's what I think is happening with Hillary. Hillary's stumbling and falling and inappropriate laughing also, and the head jerking, is now reportedly associated to a very rare disease, which was found in New Guinea. It's called Kuru. It's incurable, and it's caused by, believe it or not, by cannibalism. It's a form of mad cow disease with a long incubation period. The natives in New Guinea had it, and it affected mostly the women and children who were eating the flesh of their dead relatives. After they died, they would cook them. It eventually leads to insanity and death. Either way, with or without Kuru, I think Hillary's done. Her foundation is now crumbling. There's no more donors. People want their money back. It's a huge, huge nightmare for them. But going back to Pizzagate, let's ask ourselves here, how did we get here? Is this what we have devolved into? Is this what the non-duality philosophy of moral relativism, this atheistic, satanic, progressive smoke and mirrors has to offer us? Is this the price of power and fame and fortune that Lucifer peddles? Drinking children's blood, raping, torturing them, eating them, to achieve what? Eternal youth, immortality, power over others, and then to end up as delusional megalomaniacs like Soros, to become Saul Alinsky's, Hillary's. Look where we have come. There's now a Lucifer's Pizza in West Hollywood here in LA. They now have after-school Satan classes. You know, on the Venice Beach Boardwalk, there's a Satanist who offers advice for a fee. That's how Satanism is being mainstream. And it'll get a lot worse. So, Mr. Trump, if you do nothing else, clean up America. I think the sooner the better. It should be top of the list. Let's end this Pizzagate. Because, you know, is this the kind of civilization that we want to export to other planets in the universe if we ever go out that far? You see, the father of lies has nothing original to offer. He is simply an imitator. He is monkey see, monkey do. He excels in lies and forgery. You know, this as above, so below BS. This is so patently forged. Look at his protege, Hillary, a total fraud. A liar, a crooked, treacherous, mendacious, wretched, fault finder. He is feeding this generation the same lie he fed Eve in the garden. He told her, eat of the fruit and you won't die. You can do no wrong, nothing will happen to you. Folks, just bear in mind, ancient Israel tried that and was destroyed for the very same abominations that are now plaguing America. Is this what we want? Is this what all our libraries and our study of history and our scientific knowledge has produced? Is this what being illuminated is all about? Is this the apex of the human race? Spirit cooking? Pedophile rings? Well, I think God is saying you can take all your books and you can take your CERN particle accelerator and you can take your movie industry and your big pharma and your space programs and your psychology, because you won't need them anyway after I'm done with you. Time is compressing. When we give our consent by our silence, when we let evil get its toe in the door, and then slowly we see his foot in and then his leg in, before we know it, Satan has gateways and portals for evil to seep in until we are over our heads in a swamp. That's all for now, folks. God bless Mr. Trump, and God bless America, and God bless Israel.